true power isn't about how many obstacles you can smash through. It's about having a massive engine and knowing exactly when to use the brakes.
Oh, absolutely. That is a whole secret right there.
Right. And, if you want to master this kind of mindset, our app YOWAYOW is now available on the Apple App Store.
Yeah.
And you can also grab the book, The Mind Key to the I Ching, right now on Amazon.
Yeah, highly recommend checking those out if you really want to internalize this stuff.
Definitely. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we're dissecting a dynamic that, well, almost everyone is desperately chasing, yet very few actually know how to handle once they catch it.
Yeah, it's that classic be careful what you wish for scenario.
Exactly. We're looking at the mechanics of navigating periods of intense success, like overwhelming momentum and peak performance in your life or career.
Which, is a phenomenal problem to have, but it is still a problem. I mean, we spend decades trying to build momentum.
Oh, for sure. We want the promotion. We want to scale the business. We want our lives on this permanent winning streak.
Right. But the moment you finally arrive, the moment you suddenly possess undeniable power and vast resources, a completely new set of psychological traps opens up.
And that's what we're digging into today.
Exactly. That is the core focus of Hexagram 34 from the philosophy we're exploring, which is known as Zhuang. That basically translates to great strength or vigorousness.
And the visual architecture of this concept is just striking. You have thunder on the top, which, represents action, noise, outward movement.
Loud stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the bottom, you have heaven, representing a completely solid, unshakable foundation.
So when you combine those elements, thunder over heaven, you get a picture of immense echoing capability. Like the foundation is absolutely flawless.
There are no structural weak spots.
None at all. And the energy radiating from the top is just roaring. It's the peak of a winning streak.
So it's like a company with a massive cash reserve that's just absolutely dominating their sector.
Right. Or an individual who has hit such a major stride in their career that they feel entirely untouchable.
Okay, so I picture this in a very specific modern setting. Imagine you're behind the wheel of a fully loaded 18-wheeler truck.
Oh, I like that. That's a great image.
Right. So you have full tank of diesel, a perfectly tuned engine, and tons of forward thrust.
You're practically a freight train.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You literally possess the physical capability to crush any barrier in your way. But if you just floor the accelerator because you love the feeling of speed,
Without actually reading the road or, respecting the curves.
you're going to flip that massive machine.
Yeah.
And the collateral damage is going to be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's game over.
So the vision of our deep dive today is to figure out how you, sitting right there listening to this, can harness your biggest wins without letting your own velocity run you off a cliff.
And to drive that massive truck of momentum, the core philosophy lays out 3 mindsets for handling great strength.
Okay, let's hear them.
The very first rule is that power demands rules. Or boundaries, really.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, the principle is heavily structural. Basically, the thicker your wallet or the larger your sphere of influence, the more internal rules you actually must impose upon yourself.
Oh, wow. So you have to be stricter with yourself the more powerful you get.
Exactly. Overwhelming strength without a rigid internal rulebook isn't an advantage, it's a hazard. It destroys the user and the environment around them.
Which naturally introduces the second mindset, right?
Yeah.
The absolute prohibition of bullying.
Yes. The true measure of strength in this framework isn't how many competitors you can obliterate.
It's entirely about your capacity to hold back against those who are weaker than you.
Right. Because using leverage simply because you have, it doesn't prove you're strong. It just proves you're a tyrant.
A bully with a big truck.
Basically, yeah. And then the third principle is about internalizing that forward thrust.
Okay, so turning it inward.
Right. It's the conscious decision to take that urge, to rush outward that roaring thunder, and convert it into a quiet, humming inner stability.
So it's like taking that massive engine and letting it idle smoothly.
Yeah. Rather than constantly revving it in neutral, just to make sure everyone hears how loud you are.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, I have to push back on this framework a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If you look at Western business culture, or just the general ethos of modern success, the stated goal is to dominate, right?
Right. Move fast and break things.
Exactly. If I launch a startup, my objective is to capture total market share. If I discover a competitive advantage, my instinct is to aggressively crush the competition to ensure they never pose a threat again.
Which makes sense on the surface.
Right. So this whole concept of holding back, of idling the engine, it feels incredibly counterproductive to actually winning the game.
And that is the dominant modern perspective.
Hmm.
But it relies on a very shallow understanding of how friction works.
Okay, how so?
Well, we have to separate the concept of long-term structural dominance from short-term emotional tyranny.
Right.
Like using brute force to bulldoze your competitors or aggressively coercing your coworkers to secure a promotion, sure, that will undoubtedly yield a quick victory.
You'll get what you want in the moment.
But consider the cost. It burns goodwill. It creates highly motivated enemies. Eventually, the environment itself organizes against you to neutralize the threat you pose.
So the ecosystem pushes back.
Exactly. True. Sustainable power is about building a moat, not swinging a wrecking ball.
A moat, not a wrecking ball. I love that.
Think about it. A wrecking ball requires constant kinetic energy to do damage, right? And eventually the operator gets exhausted.
And the machine breaks down.
Right. But a moat just sits there, quietly protecting the castle forever without expending a single drop of energy.
That reframes the objective entirely. So to understand how this velocity goes off the rails and how to properly engineer that moat, we have to look at the genesis of this power, right?
Yeah, the bottom half of the hexagram, the inner game.
Right. It examines the moment momentum first enters your system, and it uses this in very curious metaphor. Strengthen the toes.
It is a brilliant physiological image, isn't it? Strength in the toes represents the impulsive twitch.
Like that burning instinct to move.
Exactly. It's that specific, dangerous moment when you've just acquired a new advantage. You know, a sudden influx of capital, a new title, a flash of viral attention, and your immediate instinct is to rush outward and externally validate it.
But the text offers a sharp warning here, right? Advancing with only strength in your toes brings misfortune.
Because you have the initial spark of energy, but you are completely blind to the ecosystem you're stepping into.
This maps perfectly onto the classic tech startup trap. I mean, we see this constantly.
Oh, yeah. The flashy launch.
Right. Two founders secure their very first major round of venture capital. Suddenly, there are millions in the bank account.
And the intelligent move would be to quietly build the product.
But the impulse, the strength in the toes, demands validation. So before they even achieve product market fit, they lease a massive glass-walled office in the most expensive part of the city.
They buy the Herman Miller chairs, the commercial espresso machines.
Exactly. And they hire a high-priced PR firm to get them on magazine covers. It's the illusion of arrival.
They possess financial power, but they are sprinting to show it off before the actual structural foundation of the business is ready to carry that weight.
And the psychology driving that behavior is just profound.
It really is. When we acquire resources, before we acquire the discipline to manage them, the imposter syndrome kicks in. The urge to kick the door open and announce your presence is overwhelming.
But your strength is literally only in your extremities. The core of your operation isn't prepared for a sprint.
Exactly. So the strategy here is ruthless suppression of that urge.
Just locking it down.
Yeah. You lock the capital in the bank, you delay the flashy expansion, you sit in a cheap garage and force yourself to focus on the work, not the optics.
Right. So if rushing out with fresh capital is a trap, how do you handle that initial surge of power? Because you can't just hide it forever.
No, you can't. The alternative is an idealized state of inner containment. This is what's considered the sweet spot of discipline.
Which is having the strength but not flaunting it.
Right. It's possessing the massive bank account, but deliberately choosing to maintain a lean lifestyle.
Okay, yeah.
It's achieving the market dominance we discussed, but deciding to compete fiercely on product quality rather than initiating aggressive, scorched earth price wars.
It's power that is heavily restrained by daily intentional friction.
Precisely.
So it's the unassuming millionaire who still drives a 10-year-old sedan because they value reliability over signaling.
That's a perfect example.
They have the financial capability to buy a fleet of supercars, but they keep that strength perfectly contained.
And that actually increases their actual optionality, because their capital isn't tied up in proving something to strangers.
But sustaining that kind of ego suppression is incredibly difficult, especially when you encounter resistance in the real world.
Which introduces the most visceral warning in the entire framework, the trap of the stuck ram.
Oh, this is a great image.
When an individual lacks that internal containment, they become obsessed with their own brute force. The imagery here is a small-minded ram encountering a woven fence. Okay?
Instead of navigating around it or analyzing its structure, the ram just lowers its head and crashes its horns directly into the barrier.
And as a result, it gets miserably, hopelessly entangled.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the mechanics of that metaphor. A woven fence isn't a solid brick wall.
Right, you can't smash it with kinetic energy.
No, you really can't.
Think about a complex corporate environment, like you're trying to push a new initiative through the pipeline. You have the data, you know you're objectively correct, and you have the seniority.
But you hit resistance.
Right. Office politics, passive-aggressive managers, budget committees. It's a web.
It's a woven fence.
Exactly. But instead of stepping back and untangling the dynamics, you play the part of the ram. You raise your voice in meetings, you send aggressive copy-to-everyone emails, you try to force compliance through sheer authority.
But the organizational immune system just absorbs that kinetic energy.
Right, you don't break through, you just trigger HR complaints, ruin your working relationships, and find yourself in total gridlock. Because the more aggressive you are, the more the surface area of that fence wraps around you. The strength itself becomes the mechanism of the trap.
Because you relied entirely on emotional pushing energy.
Right, and you blinded yourself to the nature of the obstacle. A woven fence is designed to feed on the forward momentum of the attacker.
So how do you get out of it?
The philosophy suggests that the only way to deal with a woven web is to stop pushing. You must completely withdraw that coercive energy.
Okay, but how do you actually get through the fence if you aren't allowed to push? I mean, we've explored the inner game, the impulsive toes, the contained discipline, the danger of the thrashing ram, but eventually this 18-wheeler has to hit the highway.
We have to execute externally.
Right. What happens when this momentum meets the external world?
Well, the execution phase provides the antidote to the stuck ram. It describes a state where the obstacle is finally cleared, but not through anger. It uses the imagery of a heavy cart with a deeply reinforced, structurally flawless steel axle.
Okay, the sturdy axle. So this is the shift from emotional coercion to structural integrity.
Exactly. The ram fails because it uses adrenaline and muscle. The heavy cart succeeds because the power is systemic.
Ah, I see. A sturdy axle doesn't smash through a barrier out of frustration. It simply rolls over it with undeniable competence.
Right. When your power is structurally sound, emotion becomes entirely unnecessary. The obstacles just give way to gravity.
It's like the executive who screams to get their budget approved versus the operations team that spent 6 months quietly building an airtight, mathematically flawless presentation.
That is a brilliant comparison. The presentation leaves absolutely no room for debate. It isn't a fight. It's just a reality that the rest of the company must adapt to.
Systemic power eliminates the need for conflict.
Yes.
Which brings us to a highly counterintuitive pivot. Like, once you have broken through the fence, once you are out in the open field and at the absolute apex of your momentum.
You're told to lose the ram at the edge of the field.
Right, dropping the horns. So, what does this all mean? Why give up your weapons when you are at the top? It seems absurd.
To a culture that glorifies the relentless warrior archetype, it sounds like absolute madness. But this is the ultimate psychological flex.
Laying down the shield.
Yes. When you've achieved that outer realm of success, the most strategic move you can make is to drop the need to fight entirely. Carrying weapons and constantly scanning the horizon for challengers, it requires a massive expenditure of energy.
The paranoia of the tyrant is exhausting.
Exactly. By refusing to fight, you deny challengers a target.
It makes me think of highly visible CEOs who spend their nights arguing with anonymous trolls on social media. Or like managers who obsessively micromanage minor details from their subordinates.
Oh, we'd all seen that.
Right. They have the wealth, they have the title, but they are still frantically holding on to their horns. They haven't realized the war is over.
Because they're insecure. Dropping the horns means you lay down the shield because you are finally secure in your own architecture.
You don't need to win every petty Twitter debate.
No. You interact with the world softly, precisely because your foundation is so heavy. You no longer need to intimidate anyone to feel safe.
It's a profound sense of peace that replaces combative exhaustion.
It's a psychological disarmament that completely neutralizes opponents because they realize their attacks are entirely beneath your notice.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It moves from the anxious need to demonstrate dominance to the quiet luxury of affording to be gentle.
Beautifully said.
But what happens if you refuse? What if a leader simply cannot let go of their ego, refuses to drop the horns, and just keeps the accelerator pinned to the floor indefinitely.
Well, that leads to the absolute end of the line. It's a cautionary state referred to as the empty shell.
The empty shell.
Yeah, the imagery returns to the ram, but the context has turned grim. The ram has pushed so far forward, so relentlessly, that it is now trapped at the very edge of an impassable boundary.
It's stuck at the very end.
Right. It has exhausted every drop of its energy. It cannot advance, and retreating feels impossible. It is a hollow shell, propped up purely by a dangerous situation it can no longer control.
Wow. That screams sunk cost fallacy.
That's exactly what it is.
We see this repeatedly in hype cycles. Imagine someone who buys into a massive tech stock or, a volatile cryptocurrency right at the absolute peak of the frenzy.
Following a trend too late.
Exactly. They ride the momentum of the crowd, fueled by the ego of not wanting to miss out, and they dump all their capital into the asset, and then the market freezes.
The momentum vanishes overnight.
Suddenly, they are the ram at the edge of the boundary. They have zero capital left to influence the market and push forward. But retreating like selling at a devastating 80% loss requires an ego death they just aren't prepared for.
The humiliation is too great.
Right, so they just sit there holding a toxic asset, completely paralyzed.
They are trapped by their own inertia. The pride required to maintain the illusion of success prevents them from making the only logical move left.
Because you're caught in a position that demands power you have already spent.
Exactly.
So if someone listening right now realizes they're in this exact position, they're the ram in the empty shell, stuck in a dead-end project, holding a failing investment, or trapped in a toxic corporate dynamic, what is the actual mechanical solution?
It offers a blunt, highly pragmatic instruction. Acknowledging the hardship brings good fortune.
You just have to surrender to the reality of the failure.
You have to orchestrate your own ego death. Stop thrashing. Stop trying to deploy PR spin to turn a disaster into a hidden victory.
Admit defeat.
Yes. Look at the balance sheet. Look at the dead-end project and admit defeat. Sit in the absolute burning discomfort of that failure.
You must stop burning your final reserves of psychological energy trying to fix a structurally broken situation.
Right. And instead, conserve your breath and wait for the macroeconomic or organizational environment to change around you.
Acknowledging the hardship brings good fortune. There is something incredibly potent about stepping off the battlefield and simply declaring, I miscalculated, I am out of leverage, and I am choosing to stop fighting the math.
It preserves your sanity and often your remaining capital. Knowing exactly when to surrender is the final and most difficult lesson of great strength.
Wow. Let's synthesize this whole architecture. We've mapped the entire life cycle of power and momentum.
It's a journey.
It really is. We start at the foundation, examining the danger of the impulsive toes, that desperate urge to externally validate new resources before the internal structure is ready.
Right, the flashy tech startup trap.
Exactly. Then we explored the physics of the woven fence, learning that applying brute force to complex webs only tightens the trap around the stuck ram.
From there, we elevated the strategy. We realized that true external execution requires the heavy systemic competence of a sturdy axle,
where structural integrity simply rolls over obstacles without the need for emotional coercion or anger.
And ultimately, we uncovered that the absolute zenith of this vigorousness is the psychological disarmament of dropping your horns.
It's the realization that true invulnerability comes from walking away from conflicts you no longer need to win.
Exactly. So the challenge for you as you listen to this is to audit your own trajectory. Where in your life or your career are you blindly flooring the gas pedal, intoxicated by early success?
Right.
And critically, where have you already secured the victory, yet you are still dragging your weapons onto the battlefield? Identify the areas where it might be time to finally put away your horns.
It demands a rigorous accounting of where your energy is actually being deployed. And, it sets up a fascinating problem for the next phase of your journey.
How so?
Because once you master these rules, once your aggressive outward momentum finally settles and you've achieved your success, you can't just rely on raw power forever. The world changes. And you can't rely on heavy, grounded dominance indefinitely.
That's very true.
So the question becomes, once you have built this impenetrable structural power, how do you plan to transform that heavy strength into a radiant light that people actually want to follow?